Long-range strikes with drones are Putin's new strategy, and Ukraine just left that strategy in the dust. With one powerful drone assault of its own, Ukraine has just crippled Russia's drone empire with an unthinkable strike carried out at a staggering 745 miles away from its own territory. On May 26th, both Euromaidan Press and Militarny reported that Ukraine managed to carry out a successful drone assault on a Shahed production facility in Russia's Tatarstan region. Specifically, Ukraine's attack targeted a facility in Yelabuga, marking yet another successful Ukrainian strike against Russia's Alabuga Special Economic Zone. Euromaidan says that this is just the latest in a concerted aerial campaign against a range of Russian military targets, including command centers, factories, storage facilities, and Russia's oil processing plants. Ukraine has even built special drones for these tasks, many of which are capable of traveling well over 600 miles. In the case of the Tatarstan assault, a Ukrainian drone traveled an enormous 745 miles to touch down on its target. The message Ukraine is sending to Putin is as clear as day. None of your facilities are safe, no matter how deep into Russia they may be. Militarny carries more details about what Ukraine just managed to achieve. It says that Russia's Astra news outlet reported multiple explosions within Tatarstan, the first of which occurred at 10:40 p.m. Astra claims that these explosions were linked to Russia using its air defense system to fend off Ukraine's drones. However, this isn't strictly accurate. How do we know? Because there's footage of the plant strike that shows that Russia's air defenses couldn't stop Ukraine's drones. Militarny shares a video, recorded by a civilian a safe distance away from Russia's Shahed production plant, that shows what really happened. The 8 seconds of footage starts with what appears to be a stream of smoke heading directly into the drone production facility. Immediately, that tells us that at least one of Ukraine's drones managed to make it down to the ground level, suggesting it scored a direct hit against its target. As the footage continues, what appears to be a second drone touching down is seen in the distance. The picture isn't clear, but you can hear explosions happening in the background. Witnesses at the scene also reported seeing that Russia launched a surface-to-air missile from the plant's territory, telling us that Ukraine and Russia engaged in a significant aerial battle. Beyond that, we don't know exactly how successful Ukraine's aerial assault was. However, there's another clue that it may have achieved far more than Putin wants to admit. Russia has yet to release a statement on the strike. Usually when Ukraine launches drones at Russia, we receive swift statements from the Russian Defense Ministry, claiming that its air defenses successfully shot down however many drones Ukraine sent. Even if damage is caused, the ministry tries to minimize Ukraine's success by saying that the damage was caused by debris that resulted from the destruction of Ukraine's drones, rather than those drones scoring direct hits. This time, we have nothing. Tatarstan's authorities haven't provided any official reports about what happened on the evening of May 26th, with that silence potentially speaking volumes. Russia doesn't even want to report the attack, likely because Ukraine's drones have just devastated a facility that Putin relies upon for his own aerial assaults. And that's not all. According to Militarny, Ukraine's Tatarstan plant strike also forced the closure of the Nizhnekamsk airport. That may seem like irrelevant news at first. Of course, an airport was forced to close when Ukrainian drones were incoming and Russia's air defenses were firing into the sky. However, forcing airport closures has emerged as a key Ukrainian strategy as the war trudges deeper into its 4th year. That's according to the Kyiv Independent, which reported on Ukraine's new approach to hurting Russia on May 22nd. It pointed out that Ukraine has sent hundreds of kamikaze drones all over Russia, many targeting Moscow since the beginning of 2025. Between January 1st and May 20th, those drones have forced Russia to temporarily close various airports a staggering 217 times. We know this is a purposeful strategy because that figure for the first 5 months of 2025 already far surpasses the combined total of airport closures Ukraine caused in 2023 and 24. Novaya Gazeta reports that those 2 years saw Russia being forced to suspend airport operations 58 times in 2023 and 91 times in 2024. If Ukraine keeps up the same rate of airport closures it's achieved so far in 2025, it will force Russia to shut its airports down over 520 times by the end of the year. Don't underestimate the importance of these airport closures. They wreak havoc on Russia. For instance, Ukraine managed to shut Russian airports down 35 times on May 6th and May 7th, forcing delays or cancellations on over 350 flights, which affected 60,000 travelers. Via these attacks, Ukraine's long-term strategy seems to be to force a breakdown in the connectivity between Russia's many far-flung regions. That's according to Ukrainian Defense Army Southern Division spokesperson Serhiy Bratchuk, who told the Kyiv Independent, "Moscow is the biggest aviation hub in the Russian Federation. Flights go everywhere, not only across Russia but worldwide. This is about the potential disintegration of Russian regions and the weakening of internal control. Translation: Ukraine has found a way to bring the horrors of war to Russia's citizens without putting those citizens in direct danger. Ukraine isn't attacking airports directly. Instead, it's doing things like launching drone strikes at military targets like Tatarstan's drone facility, which force airport closures. It's a 1-2 punch combo. And we just saw Ukraine pull it off again on May 26th. A key Russian drone production facility lies in ruins and an airport was closed, causing internal strife. This is a massive win for Ukraine. It's also a win Ukraine has been trying to pull off for some time, as the May 26th assault isn't the first time that the country has targeted this particular drone production facility. On April 23rd, Ukraine previously targeted the Alabuga Special Economic Zone, where Russia's Shahed drone production facility is located. It doesn't appear that Ukraine was as successful with this first strike as it was with the second. Russia was able to monitor Ukraine's incoming drones and appears to have shot them down. Still, Ukraine succeeded in its secondary goal of forcing airport closures, meaning the assault wasn't a total failure. The April 23rd strike also followed on from Ukraine's first drone assault on Tatarstan, which took place on April 2nd. That attack was much more successful, with photographs showing that Ukraine damaged a building carrying the inscription Geron. Militani says this building was likely a hostel built for the workers at the Alabuga Special Economic Zone, making it a legitimate military target for you. Take out the workers and you destroy Russia's ability to build. By this point, it's clear that Russia's Shahed production facility is a clear target for Ukraine. In the space of 2 months, it sent 3 long-range drone strikes Tatarstan's way, which leaves us asking the obvious question, why? It's all about the Shahed drones Russia is using to attack Ukraine's cities, infrastructure, and soldiers. The specific plant that Ukraine is targeting is one of the main facilities Russia uses to manufacture Iran's Shahed drones. That facility was built back in 2023, not long after Russia managed to secure permission to build Iran's Shaheds after having previously purchased the drones from its longtime ally. Back in December 2024, the Kyiv Independent reported that Putin had ordered the ramping up of production at this particular facility. We can see that from the numbers. The outlet says that the Tatarstan factory produced 2,738 Shahed 136 drones in 2023. By the end of 2024, that number had more than doubled, with the factory pumping out 5,760 Shaheds during the first 9 months of the year. It's fairly safe to say that the number was likely closer to 7,000 by the time 2025 rolled around. Beyond Shaheds Russia can use in its strikes, the facility is also known to produce Gebera drones. These drones are interesting. Made using plywood and foam plastic, Geberas mimic the look and radar signature of Russia's Shahed drones, though they pack none of the firepower. Instead, Putin's forces use these drones as decoys that confuse Ukraine's air defenses. The goal is simple: make Ukraine shoot down the decoys while clearing the way for the real Shaheds to strike their targets. The Kyiv Independent reports that Russia planned to produce at least 10,000 of these decoy drones by the end of 2024, which cost 10 times less than its Shaheds to manufacture. The Alabuga site has also been growing to keep up with the increased demand for Shahed drones. For instance, satellite images from September 2023 revealed that the site had grown by 55%, along with being equipped with enhanced security features including a fortified perimeter and anti-drone cages. We also know that the facility is home to aerial defense equipment, thanks to the footage captured of the May 26th attack. So the first reason behind Ukraine's strike is simple: taking out the Tatarstan plant causes major issues for Russia's drone production. The second reason for the strike is the specific type of drone the plant produces. The Shahed 136 is an Iranian drone that Russia now builds under the name Geran. In truth, the drones are practically the same, though Russia has started to modify its Gerans to increase their range, their carrying capacity, and harden their outer shells. Even without these enhancements, the Shahed 136 is a dangerous prospect. Classified as a loitering munition, the drone is versatile enough to be used as an attacking force or for conducting reconnaissance against Ukraine. The Shahed 136's primary use is as a kamikaze drone, with Russia packing the unmanned aerial vehicle, or UAV, with explosives before sending it to attack a target. These attacks are simple. Swarms of drones are sent at once, with any that make it through Ukraine's air defenses striking their targets directly before exploding. The drone has a delta wing design that includes stabilizing rudders at the tips of the wings. It measures a little over 11 feet long, 8.2 feet wide, and weighs approximately 440 pounds. Of those 440 pounds, up to 110 pounds is accounted for by a high-explosive fragmentation warhead of unknown composition, says Army Recognition. The odds are that Russia is packing its Shaheds with TNT, though this hasn't been confirmed. The Shahed isn't the best drone operating in the Ukraine war. It uses a consumer-grade GPS for navigation, though it can also be equipped with photo and video equipment that allows an operator to capture footage of the battlefield in real time. The UAV's engine generates 50 brake horsepower, allowing it to reach a top speed of 115 miles an hour with an estimated range of up to 1,553 miles. That range is vital. It's the reason why Russia is using Shahed 136s in such massive volumes to target Ukraine's cities and infrastructure, even though the drones move slowly enough that they're easy targets for most air defense systems. The point here is that the Shahed is a dangerous drone. Though Ukraine has built far better UAVs, the Shahed costs Russia just $35,000 per unit to build, with the decoy Gerbera costing around $3,500. That means Russia can build the drones in massive quantities for use in its aerial assaults against Ukraine. At least it could. It may not be able to do so anymore thanks to the May 26th strike, which brings us to the impact Ukraine's attack will have on the war going forward. The obvious, yet still the most important, impact of the strike is that Ukraine has just massively limited Russia's Shahed deployments. In March, the Institute for Science and International Security, or ISIS, reported on just how much Russia relies on Shaheds to hurt Ukraine. It says that Putin uses Shaheds to strike Ukraine on a nearly daily basis. In February alone, Russia sent an average of 140 drones per day, which is a massive increase over the period between August 2024 and January 2025, when the average was 60 drones daily. This proves what we mentioned in the introduction about Russia growing increasingly reliant on its drones to strike Ukraine. With its ground forces faltering and struggling to gain territory, Putin is relying on his Shaheds to maintain pressure. ISIS also provides figures for the total number of drones Russia has sent to Ukraine between August 1, 2024 and March 1, 2025. In total, Putin has sent 15,011 Shahed-type drones. We say Shahed-type because these figures also seem to include the decoy and dummy drones Russia is sending to confuse Ukraine's air defenses. Of those 15,011, 454 have hit their targets, with Ukraine also having shot down a further 9,051. Most of the rest were lost somewhere in the area of operation, with only 156 managing to return to their launch points in Russia or Belarus. This sheer volume of Shahed deployments reveals why Ukraine's May 26th strike is so impactful. The Tatarstan plant was building as many as 7,000 of the Shaheds, along with thousands of the decoys Putin used for these assaults. With that plant out of commission, Ukraine has potentially limited Russia's UAV strike capacity by thousands of drones per year. Speaking of drone manufacturing, the May 26th attack also takes a massive bite out of Russia's drone building capacity. That's something that Putin has been attempting to increase for most of the Ukraine war. For instance, the International Institute for Strategic Studies, or IISS, says that Russia has built on its Tatarstan production facility by creating a second manufacturing site in Izhevsk. That facility is likely already operational, says IISS, though it's unknown if it matches the production numbers of the Tatarstan facility. If it does, then it's clear that Putin is attempting to double Russia's drone production. In fact, double may be an understatement. In March, Business Insider reported that Putin has plans to build up to 100,000 new drones per year in Belarus. The Russian ally was used as a staging ground for Putin's initial invasion and is still being used for launching drones against Ukraine. Reuters also said in September 2024 that Putin planned to ramp up Russia's drone production capabilities tenfold in 2025 alone. The message coming out of Russia was clear. Putin knew that he was going to have to start relying on drone production more heavily to win the war he started. All of these new facilities were supposed to expand on what the Tatarstan factory could do. With that expansion came a sense of urgency for Ukraine. It couldn't just sit back and let Russia make more Shaheds, especially considering the sheer number of drones Russia has been sending against it in recent months. By hitting Tatarstan, Ukraine may have taken out anywhere between a third and half of Russia's drone production capabilities, right at the point where Putin is trying to accelerate manufacturing. Now, rather than spending money on building drones, Russia has to invest in repairing a facility that it's already spent heavily to create. Let's come back to Russia's drone attacks for a moment. While the figures we shared earlier offer a high-level overview of just how devastating Russia's drones are to Ukraine, it's likely that Ukraine is choosing now to strike back because Russia's attacks are intensifying. According to national security news, drones now account for a staggering 80% of deaths on both sides of the Ukraine war. Tanks, artillery, and even missiles are no longer as important to Putin as the drones he's trying to build in massive quantities. For Ukraine's soldiers, the destruction of the Tatarstan facility means that they're at least a little safer on the battlefield. They've also received a new advantage. Fewer Russian drones means more room for Ukraine's drones to operate, both in short-range assaults on the ground and long-range attacks against Russian territory. We also can't ignore that fewer Shaheds in the skies also means Ukraine expends less of its aerial defense ammunition taking out Russia's drones. More missiles are left behind for Ukraine to target Russia's more devastating ballistic missiles and glide bombs. Then there are Ukraine's civilians to consider. One of the most concerning things about how Putin uses Russia's Shahed drones is that he targets everything he can. Ukraine hits military targets, as we just saw in Tatarstan. Russia, on the other hand, hits both military and civilian targets. In other words, Putin is happy to send Shaheds into Ukraine's cities, where they kill people who aren't even involved in the fighting. He's been doing that a lot over the past couple of months, with a period between February and May, with Russia breaking its own record for the sheer number of drones it sends in a single strike 3 times. On February 22nd, Russia launched a record-breaking 267 drones at Ukraine, which broke the previous record of 193 set in December 2024. Ukraine managed to shoot down 138 of those drones, with another 119 being lost in flight. On May 18th, Russia broke its record again by launching 273 drones in a single night, in what Politico called Putin actively snubbing ceasefire negotiations. Again, Ukraine managed to take out most of the drones. However, at least one managed to reach Kyiv, where it killed a woman. Fast forward to just 8 days later, and Russia broke its record again, this time sending 355 drones into Ukraine. May 26th was the most devastating of the attacks, resulting in 6 people being killed and a further 24 being injured across multiple Ukrainian oblasts. It's likely no coincidence that Ukraine's Tatarstan strike came on the same day as this terrible Russian attack. In all 3 cases, Putin wasn't using his Shaheds to strike legitimate military targets. He sent them into cities, into civilian centers where they touched down on residential buildings and similar targets that are home to Ukraine's everyday people. That, more than anything else, is why Ukraine is targeting Russia's drone manufacturing plants. If it doesn't, Putin will build more Shaheds, which means he'll launch more attacks on Ukraine's people. Ukraine can't allow that. The odds are that the next few months will bring with them more attacks on Tatarstan, along with Ukraine targeting even more of Russia's drone stockpiles. But what do you make of Ukraine's Tatarstan strike? Is it taking the right course of action by targeting Russia's drone manufacturing facilities? Will Putin intensify his attacks against Ukraine's cities in response? Let us know your thoughts below, and remember to subscribe to The Military Show for more commentary on Ukraine's latest achievements in its fight against Russia's invasion. Now go and check out how German wooden drones are destroying Russia's military, or click this other video instead.